Hey, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of The Daily Leader. I am Taylor Jessup, and this is actually Brad McDonald, who is a good, close, personal friend of mine. And we are excited to get the chance to interview Vincent Clark today, who I know is a good friend of yours, and hear your story. So, Vincent, super excited for that. Couple quick shout-outs we always like to give. Jesus from Video Pilot is fantastic. April Norris does all of our music. We do have a candle burning right here from Ellery May Candle Co., who has a smoking hot owner / CEO, who is fantastic. You can find all of that in our show notes today. Yeah, that's my wife, if you haven't figured that out. With that, man, hey, super excited, Vincent, you're here. Brad, can you give us just a little bit of the 411 on him? And then I want to dive into your story, man, just hear all about you. So let's do it.
Yeah, so first and foremost, thank you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, man.
This is a lot of fun for me. Mm-hmm. So we met a year and a half ago. Okay. About a year and a half ago. Mm-hmm. And you have been a wonderful mentor to me and guide and colleague in some ways too, through some of your consulting. And so I've gotten to know a lot about you and your story. So from, growing up, military family, athleticism, lots of different opportunities to be leading in business from the restaurant space, both sort of QSR kind of environments to fine dining, owning your own restaurant. A lot that you've taught me about hospitality, about leadership. Also, small business ownership in landscaping here in Arizona, where landscaping is a very important part of our culture. And also nonprofits, churches. Your leadership experience is super diverse and vast. And so I just really thought it'd be great for our listeners to get some exposure to you. And then I think, the other thing too is in real estate, which is where you focus the majority of your time right now in your leadership, and you have a different way of doing real estate, and I think that it speaks to your character, it speaks to your leadership, and I think that I would love for our listeners to get some exposure into how you think about excellence and care and the way that you can enhance people's lives through one of the largest and most significant, if not the most, purchase of their life. And so it's an honor to have you here. I would love for you to kind of fill in the gaps. I just kind of gave a nice kind of jet flyby version of your resume, but would you tell us your story and help our listeners get a little bit more familiar with who you are?
Well, sure. Yeah. First, I'm honored to be here. Super humbled anytime someone takes an interest in hearing what I have to say. It's a bizarre reality, to be honest. So thank you for all your kind words. And I hear my experiences are diverse and vast, which translates to, dude, you are old. And that just, I have to embrace that at some point. And I keep thinking I'm a little older than the 20-year-old kid, that I'm playing basketball against. And then I realize I didn't jump on that rebound because I didn't leave the ground and my body hurts. And so it is what it is.
Well, however old you are, you look sharp, my friend.
Well,
you are not looking old. So young and spry.
Yeah. Well, thank you. So story, I mean, people ask where I'm from, and I was actually born in Kansas, of all places. McPherson, Kansas, farm country, really flat. My mom and her family, they were, not my mom, but her family, German immigrants. They're Mennonites, and so kind of settled in the middle of Kansas and, hundreds of acres of farm country. And so just a really cool part of the country to be from. But my dad, as you mentioned, was in the military, and so really young, we kind of moved out of Kansas and bounced around. Most of all the travel was before I was 3 or before I could really remember. And from East Coast, north, south, coming out to the West Coast, Long Beach, down to San Diego, which we ultimately settled. So I grew up in San Diego. We are a very sports-centric family. Everything kind of revolved around that. My dad's very athletic. My mom is very athletic, playing basketball. In high school and in college, my dad played football. And so everything that we did kind of went through this filter of how does it fit into our sports activities. And so we started playing tennis really, really young, which was super fun. And then that transitioned to, baseball and t-ball and then basketball and then kind of multiple things at once, not at the same time like it is today, but it's this sport now, then a different sport, and then a different sport. So we really developed a lot of athletic skills growing up. But it was hard driving. My dad took his kind of military mindset and said, I know how to get from point A to point B, and it's through a lot of intentional discipline and pain and hard work. And so I'm the middle of 3 boys. We're all about 3 years apart. My older brother took to that training pretty well, or at least he was obedient to follow it, not necessarily always with the best attitude, but he did. Me, not so much. I was middle kid and saw what my older brother was doing, knew that I could never kind of keep up with that, so I checked out, which caused a lot of tension between me and my dad. And then the more tension I kind of felt by not doing what was needed to work to get to another level, I really started to not just not do it, but really start rebelling against it. And so I made a lot of really poor decisions growing up. I was in trouble a ton. Even both of my brothers were like, I can't believe you did that. Like, you knew you were going to get smoked for that, and you still did it. I'm like, yeah. And so that was my way of having some level of control or power in a situation that just seemed miserable to me. And so we transferred schools a lot. My dad had a lot of kind of tense relationships around town through sports as we got older, and certainly identifying the skill set of my older brother. A lot of people paid attention to that. And so my dad had some power with other people around town, and he used it, and some people were great with it, and a lot of people weren't. And so lots of coaches we burned through, ended up changing schools. Freshman year in high school, I was a freshman. My older brother was a senior. And it was good. We played basketball and baseball, went to a state championship in California. We lost that, but it was still a super fun experience to play with my older brother. My younger brother, both my brothers are 6'7", 6'8". I'm 6'2", so my younger brother became taller than me when I was, I think he was 9. And so I'm 12 and he's bigger, and it's horrible. So we just, my older brother is like, crazy awesome at sports. My younger brother is crazy awesome at sports, and I'm just in the middle. It just is horrible. So I haven't been to therapy yet, but I'm definitely still working through some stuff.
Yeah. Taylor knows some guys.
Yeah.
We could talk.
No, Taylor's done.
I'm in it for myself. I'm in the same bucket.
Oh, really?
My brothers are taller than me.
I love it.
Probably better athletes.
Love it. So anyway, so that got me through high school. I mean, I was above average at sports, but never willing to take it to another level. So then my parents split up. My mom moved out my sophomore year. That was a really hard year for me, just in general, not because of that necessarily, but just life in general. I mean, it was fairly poor household dynamic leading up to that, so it wasn't a huge surprise. But sophomore year, you're 15, 16, just dealing with life in general. And lots of positive things were not inexistent. I just kept rebelling and ended up switching schools. Went through some other worse or decisions, I should say. Got arrested. Didn't have to. They dropped charges, which was great. So it could have gotten worse. And then graduated high school. Started working at Chuck E. Cheese and went on my way. So I can make this as long as short as you want, but that's kind of it. Diana and I got married at 25. Went through some challenges to get to that point, and but we did that. We've been married now 23 years and 5 kids, and
well done.
Yeah, living life, man. It's good stuff.
Yeah. That's great.
Yeah,
that's great. So and then fill in the gap. So now currently, what are you doing occupationally? What is that look like?
Yeah. So my degree is hotel restaurant management. Graduated from Cal Poly Pomona, and took a job for a restaurant company, Hillstone Restaurant Group. And that kind of took me through all sorts of stuff, from owning a restaurant, working for different restaurant companies, worked for only one hotel, Ritz-Carlton, and Ritz-Carlton is great, but I knew I didn't want to be in hotels. Left the restaurant business after our second kid, and then went into some consulting and some other random stuff. Landed one of those consulting relationships put me in landscaping, so I ended up owning a landscape company. Yeah, launched a nonprofit and kind of did all that stuff. And then in 2009, one of our donors asked us if we knew how to flip houses. So we said no, but it looks super fun because that was the time the market had crashed and everybody's doing that stuff. So he invested some money. We were on our way. I really liked real estate while running our landscape business, and flipped I don't know how many homes. Before I got my license, we did 3 with another realtor, but then I got my license and then I started selling them. Then started doing regular real estate. People started asking me to buy them a home or sell their house, and then that became super fun. And then fast forward all that to say is I now own a brokerage, residential brokerage. We do some commercial deals, but it's really just for our residential clients that own businesses. And so that's my focus. We've divested all of our landscape interest. I don't own any other businesses, and we're just focused on real estate now.
Love it, man. Love it. That could be a book like from Chuck E. Cheese to,
right.
to real estate.
Yeah,
right?
Interesting path for sure. So,
Love it. Okay, so I mean, here at the Daily Leader, right, we are relentlessly always kind of trying to stay curious about how people lead, what that looks like. And you have a really unique background there, right, of both the hospitality industry and then everything that you're now doing in leadership and sales. So I'm wondering, could you just help me a little bit talk about some of the key moments that may have shaped your perspective on leadership? So maybe let's actually start a half step back. So one of the questions we always like to ask people is like, how do you define leadership? It's a very broad question. I know it's huge, super hard, but we like to put people on the spot and just go, okay, if you could define it, what does that look like to you?
Well, I don't have a super succinct answer, but when I think about leadership, usually people think about who's in charge, who has the authority, who's making the decisions, and by default, that person with those characteristics also carry the title of leader. And so to me, those are mutually exclusive. They overlap a lot, but the person with the most authority or the person with the title doesn't necessarily make them a leader. And so ultimately, by the practical nature of the term, leader is anyone who has people behind them following them. Someone who is trying to lead a group of people or get a group of people to a common destination, and those people are relying on that person to get them there. The de facto leader, I guess. So try to keep it as high level as possible. So that's really all I think about. Are people following? Who are the people following, and what are we trying to achieve? And when that's not obvious, who's in charge? By title.
Clear.
No, that's very clear. I love it. So okay, so let's talk about a little bit more. I just love to know, like, are there some key experiences for you in your life that have shaped your perspective and how you lead? Like, do you have those markers in your story?
Sure. So Chuck E. Cheese was my first formal job. I had other random jobs before that, but first, like payroll, W-2 employee, this is the job. I had no desire to work there. It was just the first place that hired me out of high school when I was ventured out into life and needed some direction. So
are you in college at that time at Cal Poly?
No, I was nope. So I went to JC for a year to play basketball.
Okay.
So this was before. This is literally right after I graduated high school.
Okay.
And hadn't fully decided what I wanted to do. So I got a job.
That's
and
awesome.
then went to JC. Yeah. I was a cashier guy singing happy birthdays to little kids, cleaning up, throw up, and poop in the bathroom.
Sounds like so much fun.
So good.
Yeah.
Taylor and I have had some of that in our...
Yeah, I clean up after Brad all the time.
Yeah.
I feel like that's
right.
what it is.
That's awesome. Chuck E. Cheese probably, I worked for a couple different general managers at Chuck E. Cheese, and one of them really focused on if the outside of the cup is clean but the inside is dirty, then it's not clean. And so he was a big car guy, and so he would come into work. He had this Mustang, whatever, and he would just go to great detail to tell me what he did on this car. And I'll never forget asking him, like, why do you put so much work into cleaning things or, fine-tuning things that no one will ever see? And he's like, well, if it's only clean on the outside, it's not really clean. And so invariably at some point, someone's going to look under the hood. Someone is going to see, and if it's not clean, then I'd be a fraud. And so that's how he went about the restaurants. And so there immediately, I'm 19 or whatever, became a sense of intentionality and pride to do something that no one would ever see. But then on the random chance someone would see it, never expecting it for it to be clean, and it was clean, man, that just did something inside of me. I'm like, let's go. So that really put me on a trajectory to focus on a lot of details and keep a level of integrity, especially when no one was looking. And so at 19 at Chuck E. Cheese, I was off and running, just off of that kind of mindset of cleaning what no one will ever see.
Yeah.
So it's
Yeah.
really cool.
No, that's a big deal. I mean, we've talked a couple times on the podcast about, hey, kind of does the inside match the outside? Like a lot of times maybe what's going on even in our personal lives and everything, it doesn't always match up with what we're doing and how we're trying to lead people.
Yeah.
So I think that's a really good takeaway for anybody that's listening is like, man, hey, what are the things that you're doing that maybe nobody will see? And are those things clean? Are they neat?
Right.
Are they in order?
Right. Yeah, no, it was good. And the challenging part of that is we still have a staff, of, 50, let's say at the time. So it's one thing to have the general manager who cares about it.
That's right.
But here's a cool part of leadership is, can you get the people who are following you to do it without you forcing them to do it, without you creating an environment of fear and punishment? Can you inspire them and lead them at a level that they will now it'll become their own value and conviction, and they'll do it. And this guy did that. And so we had a store that became known with the reputation of the cleanest store in the company. It's a big national company. And we were on the map just because of the care and detail that we put into cleaning the store.
Yeah.
So it was cool.
How did he do that? Like, I think that was a great point that like, hey, if you can get your team to do that, right, without necessarily having to just force them to like, always be, like, what was that like? How did he pull that off?
So he just had kind of this really energetic, engaging personality. Do you care about your staff enough to understand what inspires them? And so one of the things someone told me, this was actually at Hillstone now, opening a restaurant in Newport Beach. My boss's vice president at the time said, look, the difference between inspiration and motivation is slight, but it is extremely important. If you have a staff only doing things because they're motivated, motivation is usually driven by a desire to get a reward or to get something. But if you're inspired to do, that comes from your soul. It now becomes a part of you to do, and that's what we want to achieve. We want to achieve inspiration with staff, not motivation. And so it's really, really hard to do, but you can do it by getting to know in a legal way your employees and understanding what makes them tick, what they care about, and it's really hard to do. It takes a lot of effort and energy, but if you do that, you can change and achieve tons. So I like to rest there in trying to figure out, I would say, I describe it as turning around backward. I'm going to lead by walking backwards. And so I may be the one out in front, but I'm really turned around looking at my staff, trying to figure out what they need for them to keep coming. And so it helps, but it's exhausting for sure. It takes a lot of intentional effort to care about your staff enough, and especially if they don't, if they're not hitting the results that you want, do you still care about them? And unfortunately, there's times in business you got to make certain decisions where this isn't the right fit. But the path to get there is a little, usually a little further than a lot of people would try. Meaning, they'll make a decision too quick to kind of cut someone out instead of investing some more energy and time. Every situation is different. There are some absolutes. You make this call right now, but in general, if you take the time to invest in your people, chances are you'll get the results that you want in a much healthier and productive way.
I love that. I really like the idea of like finding a way to inspire your team, and that idea of like, hey, you're looking back and looking for ways to inspire them rather than just saying, hey, that's where we're going, come hell or high water. I think that's fantastic. So can you tell me a little bit more? So you were in the hospitality industry, and then that kind of shaped a lot of this perspective. How has that affected like your current business? Like what does that look like now in real estate?
Yeah. So one of the things I noticed looking back on everything that I've done, including my first job as a paper route when I was 11 or 12. From that to restaurants, to Chuck E. Cheese, to the landscape business, to consulting, it's all service related. And so everything that I've done, I've never produced a product. I've done things, but everything that it had to deal with, how can I serve this person? That's really what it was. And as soon as I was able to articulate that, which is, let's say in the last 10 years, it just really helped fine tune my heart. No matter what I did, I'm always going to be serving people. And so when I think about leadership, just in general, the first kind of idea that comes to me is serving people. And so leadership, I think, is a byproduct of serving people. That's it. I think we have a culture that glorifies leadership in a super unhealthy way, to where everyone is, we're trying to make leaders. Are you a leader? You're a leader. We have these leadership development. Well, not everyone is created to be a leader. Not on the scale that I think our culture elevates. But everyone can inspire another person to have them follow. So for me, as I lead from walking backwards, it's really just trying to serve the people that are either on my team. So in real estate now, it's serving my clients. Landscaping, it's the same, serving customers or property managers. When you have these commercial properties, this property manager really, really cares about this. Well, this property manager really, really cares about this. Well, this homeowner loves their oleanders cut this way. So am I now going to impress upon my own opinion as to how I think it should go? Or do I move towards these people and try to hit a bullseye for what they desire? And so that's kind of what I've always done, no matter what the industry is in. Who am I working for, and how can I best serve them? It's like, I don't know, someone told me at one point, your job, this I think is probably at Houston's, but it didn't come from Houston's. Your job is to make your boss look amazing. So, okay. So I'm working for the company, but in my immediate context, the best way to, serve the company and achieve the company's goals, and even my individual personal aspirations I might have, is to make my boss look amazing. And that's it. So I'm really serving my boss. Like, what do you care about? Well, I think we should run it this way or do that. My opinion came secondary to, serving that person. And so I've always it's going to sound weird, subordinated myself to serve that person. And by default, or I should say, the organic byproduct of serving people like that is you get elevated into positions where people want to follow you. That's really good. And so I try to focus more on the service more than, how can I lead people better? It's more, how can I serve people better?
I'm curious how Hillstone Houston's, for those of you who aren't familiar with that brand, go Google it and check it out. It's an incredible brand. And they're very well known for their quality, for the ambiance of their restaurants. They have amazing burgers, and I love your interview burger story is one of my all-time favorite restaurant stories. And we may not have to tell that story if it's appropriate, but what in that culture do you feel like really shaped you? Because similarly, being in QSR and being a part of the Chick-fil-A culture, that had such a profound impact on the way that I look at business, the way that I look at service, the way that I look at leadership. And I can imagine in your life, Hillstone Houston's was a really big part of that for you too.
Yeah, no, massive. And several things come to mind, but I can tell you that one of them is having pride in the company that I work for. When I started, and even when I interviewed, I'd never even heard of them and didn't know who they were. And when I started working there and would tell people where I work, they would have one of two reactions. It was either, I've never heard of that place before, or that's the most amazing restaurant on the planet. And there was no in between.
Yep.
And every time I got that response, it just made me stick out my chest a little bit more, had more confidence and pride in what I was doing. And so that was huge. And then inside the restaurant on a daily basis, there was a truth telling that I always appreciated, meaning there was no hiding anything. This is what it is. We're not going to create a false narrative because it's easier to deal with it. We're going to deal with reality, whatever that is, whether it's we're short on a shift, these tomatoes aren't good enough, you're not performing well enough. I certainly had experiences with people that probably could have communicated the truth a little bit friendlier, but my default was still very appreciative of dealing with the truth. We all know the truth. Like, let's deal with that. So that was huge. But probably the biggest thing was their commitment to accuracy, which is connected to this kind of truth part. Something as simple as, if I get it right, if I remember, they had kind of a value that, accuracy was courtesy. And so, and I would kind of change it to accuracy is loving, meaning, hey, we're on a 2-hour wait up front at the hostess stand. We're not going to tell people we're on a 45-minute wait, because if you do that, they might stay around, but man, are they going to be pissed when it's really short. Yes. So we deal with reality. We're going to tell them it's 2 hours, and that just makes things a lot easier. It's really caring for the guest with truth and accuracy. And so from that to, hey, the spec on this onion for this burger is a 1/4-inch dice. Well, I just saw the prep cook making, they're all like 3/4 of an inch dice. Well, you need to go back and cut them. Or those are minced onions. Those are not quarter. Throw them all out. Like they will not use anything or not accept anything that wasn't a core value for them. So the vendors knew it. When we get a delivery, hey, these greens are terrible, send them back. Hey, we're gonna have to 86 this off the menu the entire day until someone comes back with better stuff. And that's just kind of how it is. There's just no accepting of mediocrity. This is what makes us who we are, and we're going to stick to it no matter what the cost is. And that's powerful for me. So
that is. Mm-hmm. When you look back at the transition to being a restaurant owner, can you speak a little bit to that story and how both Chuck E. Cheese as well as Houston's influenced the way in which you ran that business and how you led people and served your guests in that environment?
Yeah. Certainly, Chuck E. Cheese to Hillstone was a little bit different in terms of the ownership mindset. Because the reality is, Houston's, they really treat their, certainly general managers, like owners of the restaurant, meaning there's tons of freedom. They pay extremely well because they hold you accountable for some of these decisions that you make. They would say, look, you can make that decision and then you're going to have to deal with the consequences, good or bad. You'll be rewarded handsomely for your performance in you making that decision. Here are some really loose boundaries that you have to stay in. But we want you to experience the fruits of your labor. And so we want to treat you or create an environment where you feel like an owner as much as possible. And I say all that because the transition into my own restaurant, it wasn't a huge difference in terms of mindset. However, when this is directly impacting your bank account, literally every decision that you make, it is different, And I worked for another restaurant owner here in town at one point, and at Chuck E. Cheese and Hillstone, managers sign checks, for a vendor delivery. If you had like a liquor check, you have to pay, at the time of delivery. You just sign and pay for it with a check that you keep in the back.
Taylor and I don't know what checks are, Vincent,
Yeah.
but I kind of think I get
right.
get the idea.
Generally.
Yeah. Generally.
Yeah.
So I had a delivery one day at a restaurant. I was working for an owner who owned a few restaurants with just one guy, and he wasn't there, and I had a delivery and they needed a check. So I grabbed the check and signed my name, and off to the races. No big deal. Owner came in and he was hot. He's like, no one can sign checks except me. Like, who are you? That was my bad. So, I learned from that really quick. Like, just, every decision that is made impacts whether or not I can feed my kid. And so, you do have an elevated level of awareness and, desire to do certain things, but you're more cautious on some level, but you're also more willing, certainly in my case, to take risks because of the potential reward was even greater than working for somebody else. So it kind of goes both ways.
When you think about your experience as a business owner, how was your leadership different when you think about the people who worked for you? How is it different when you were the guy, the buck stops with me, I'm the one writing the checks? Did that change at all from the time that you were a general manager?
No, I mean, it changed more in the natural maturation of my life as a leader, meaning how I am today is way different from how I was at Chuck E. Cheese. There was this intense black or whiteness to my leadership, meaning it's this way or no way. There is no in between. A lot of the things that I really enjoyed about, working in environments that were so committed to this or that, it started to wear on me through the years. It really started to impact relationships. More so, I guess, because after I left the restaurant business, I've been on my own for, 15 years, I guess. So as an owner, to where, I'm the only one with the burden of producing, and I reap the rewards of that and bear all the disastrous risk and punishment of that. And so that has caused me to pay attention to people more, like develop more of a gray lens versus a black and white lens. The corporate environment or working for someone else definitely I don't know what the right term is, certainly exacerbated my commitment to the black or white. Like, this is it. Like, this is the company standard. There is no in between. I don't care if it, makes you cry. I don't care if you're able to, it was that. And it became like a badge of honor. This is like, and when everyone on the team is committed to that, it sounds great, but man, you just steamroll people like really easily. And so not being in that environment, being more of an owner, I have been able to care more for not just the people that I'm serving as a client, but the people that I'm serving as, their boss. So.
Yeah. And that's fantastic. It sounds a little costly, not in a bad way, right? But maybe, because there is a reason why if you're a big corporate entity, you're like, hey, here's our standards. Can you unpack that and tell me why the cost is worth it to really focus on serving your team? Because I think it's so easy to do in theory, but people don't do it because there is a cost.
That's right.
Well, I think at the end of the day, this is going to sound cliche and probably altruistic. The end game can't be how much money that we make. We're here to, live, have fun and enjoy the fruits of your labor for sure. But when I was living in corporate life, everything was driven by the P&L. Everything. And to the, 100th of a percentage point. It's food cost is what? 30.1. It was supposed to be 29.8. Well, you're not going to make your bonus. It's like, man.
Yeah.
This is brutal. So everything was just driven, and now that's just not the case. And so I've kind of taken on a heart posture of the money will take care of itself if I'm serving my team and if I'm serving clients. And that really came through honestly in my time at the Ritz-Carlton. They have this motto that we are ladies and gentlemen taking care of or serving ladies and gentlemen. So the idea that the employees are also at this ladies and gentlemen level as the guests is really powerful for their employees. And so that meant a lot to me. And so now that if we take care of that, the money will be there. And so that has helped. But it does, to your point, it takes a lot of extra energy. And so caring for people is exhausting, whether it's in business or your family. I mean, or your friend, it just is. And so now caring for people maybe outside of work with your family or friends, and then now inside of work, you're caring for people. Also, there's some professional, boundaries that have to exist on some level, but it takes a lot of time to do that. And it's a cost that a lot of people don't pay. And we've just chosen to pay it. Now, I'm not perfect. I'm sure there's no shortage of people that would line up out this door that did not enjoy me as a boss. Not professing to be perfect at all. It's just a matter of, do people experience me and feel like I'm here to extract something out of them so that I can buy a bigger house? I don't want to be anywhere near that. Yeah. And so even my time as an elder at our church, it's just exhausting. When you start caring about people, like, buckle up. Yeah. Like, they're all messy, and including myself, and it's a lot. So, but I wouldn't want it any other way.
Well, I'm glad you mentioned, being an elder in a church, because I think that highlights this other layer of your experience, whether that be with One Mission, church, sort of volunteer church leadership, and then some of really speaking in at high levels to how churches design themselves. You've done a lot of interesting things. What are some of the differences between that kind of nonprofit work leadership versus being in this for-profit business context?
Yeah. Well,
how's that shaped out?
Churches always, I shouldn't say always, a lot of churches resist any perceived overlap or any sense of a business mindset coming into a church. And rightfully so on a lot of different levels. But organizational leadership, especially at a church, has a lot of overlapping dynamics, and there's a lot that are different. But and one of the things that was different that's hard for me is, kind of a volunteer workforce. And this is where the inspiration motivation thing really comes into play, because there's no paycheck motivation. Are these volunteers inspired to be a part of your mission and vision? And if they aren't, quote unquote, performing, what do you do with that? And so it's delicate at several junctures in trying to lead volunteers. But if you can inspire people, cast vision, still care about them, you're serving them, no matter what the context of people that you're leading, you have to be not just caring. You can be super nice and caring, but if you're not smart or have any level of wisdom or knowledge of whatever product you're selling, or in a church context, if you're not knowledgeable of, certainly the gospel or biblical kind of, doctrines, but just basic kind of Jesus-centered ideas, people are going to see that real quick. If you're not genuine in your integrity or your character, hypocrisy is very easy to identify in church contexts, because people are always looking to get you. I shouldn't say always looking, but you're in an elevated position and certainly held to a different standard. So was really important. But here's probably the number one thing that drove me crazy and was hard to overcome, is that I don't believe desire should be a leading factor, or maybe not even on the list of putting someone in a position that they shouldn't be in. Meaning, if there's an opportunity that someone needs to lead or take charge of, their desire to do it is not even in my top 10 of criteria. Where my church experiences, I see desire as the driving force of putting people who aren't equipped or aren't capable in positions they should never be in. And so me coming from a business world is really hard to navigate through that.
Yeah, so to clarify that, what you mean is that desire might be an indicator of inappropriate motive or just not at all
Could be.
an indicator that someone is actually suited for their role.
That's right. It's certainly more of that. Yeah, I don't get into motivations a ton with people. Sometimes they're obvious and you can kind of sniff those out. But if someone has a desire to do something, that's great. But that's about as far as it goes, Like
Yeah,
Yeah,
I
you're
love
not,
that.
you don't desire to be the CEO of Apple and then become the CEO.
Yeah,
Right.
It takes a lot more.
Yeah, so we got to match up the needs of, the church in this case. But it's also true in the business world, the needs of whatever we're kind of trying to achieve as an organization and match that up with people who are either capable of doing. I mean, I don't know how many times we've asked people to do things. We've identified their abilities and it never crossed their mind, nor did they have a desire. And this was like, hey, can we consider you for this? And sometimes it's us talking them into it and then they flourish, So, and we've seen the opposite of desire and not capable and it goes horrible. Yeah.
Would you say that your experience in business and in some of these nonprofit opportunities have been enhancing to one another?
Yeah, 100%. They're so integrated where my church entry a long time ago in any leadership, it was don't bring that business kind of stuff here. And now that I've been on both sides and high levels of leadership, they're more integrated to me than ever. People tend to think of, the perceived or cultural negatives that we reinforce through various different messaging of the negatives of business, and you're all about money, and that's just no place for to exist in a church. And it's the same way people kind of think about work. Like I'm just working and saving money so I don't have to work anymore. Like those are amoral. Like work. Well, I shouldn't say work is amoral. I think it's absolutely moral and certainly gives people opportunities to flourish. And so, but we only think of work in a negative context as being this high stress. I'm only working to pay the man, and it's horrible. So there's
just
beauty.
treat it as a means to an end. In that regard.
Yeah. So there's beauty. I think some churches are doing a much better job of identifying things from the business world with business leaders to help organizational leadership and how to move the ball down the field, if you will, with a group of people all trying to achieve the same goal.
That's good.
Yeah, I mean, I think that idea of desire and putting that person in the right position is very interesting to me because from our time here, your focus on serving both your team and the client is fantastic, right? And for me, I think it's really cool that you have continued to put people before profits, and the profits or the end result is the byproduct of doing things well. But sounds like there was something identified where sometimes in the nonprofit world we can elevate somebody just due to their desire, and that actually isn't serving them or whoever they're in charge of very well, right?
Yeah.
So
100%.
that is a really interesting take of saying just because you have the desire, now we can maybe help you get there, right? There's leadership, there's coaching, there's development. You can look up Brad at Pattern Talent and go, hey,
That's
how do
right.
you help me get here?
That's right.
But it is interesting.
But I still charge churches.
Sure.
Just want to lay that out.
Yeah, it's not free.
Right.
No,
It's
it ain't
not
free.
Right.
But that is fascinating, and all with the end goal of serving both your team and then your customers, right?
Yeah, I mean, certainly in business, and I've recently had this conversation and had to look at my own life. It's a matter of stewardship for me, which I know is a kind of a Christian term or a faith-based mindset. But yeah, are we, stewarding not just resources in terms of money, but resources in terms of talent to, move down the road or achieve what you feel like you are made to do or called to do or are being urged to do, or whatever verbiage you want to use, there's a responsibility, and leaders or people in these roles have that responsibility to be able to be aware enough to identify, is this desire connected to, are we stewarding that desire well in order to, go here? And not to get super spiritual, but we have had people, God said I should be doing this. And it's like, well, God didn't tell us that you should be doing that. And we're the one responsible with this kind of, stewardship issue. So, and then, being willing to move closer to that person to maybe articulate some things that they hadn't seen, like the desire is great, and but you're not ready for this yet, or we kind of see you using your skill set over here, blah, 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 whatever it happens to be. And that overlaps for me, business and church for sure.
I think we need to get into some rapid fire here, Taylor.
Yeah, are we ready for the Bradley Blast?
Yeah, the Bradley Blast rapid fire here.
There we go. I like that. Yeah. Are you ready for
I'm
the
ready.
Bradley Blast?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
So
No
so
idea
this is a fun part where I'm trying to kind of hang you on the horns of the dilemma. Okay, so we're gonna go either or. You can't choose both.
Oh.
And
I'm already rejecting.
I
your
know.
premise.
I know. I hate it. It made me feel awkward.
I did this to
and
Taylor
uncomfortable.
too, actually, on our first episode without giving him any context at all. No prep.
Yeah.
It was
And I am I prefer In-N-Out almost over any restaurant. Speaking of hospitality, because there's one choice. You can have a burger,
That's right.
and that's
right.
it. So
Yeah.
thank you for that, Brad.
Yeah, absolutely.
go.
This is a lot
Let's
of
do
fun. So I think you've been speaking to this throughout our interview here with you this morning. And so we're going to start here. So people or tasks? What is more important in leadership? People or tasks?
Well, these all seem like, that question seems like it would have an answer that's appropriate and one that's not appropriate.
Vincent, this is rapid fire. Rapid fire.
I'm on the record of rejecting your premise, as I don't
on all of
don't
these
think
you will.
in binary terms.
Yes. And all of these, knowing what I know about you, you will say wrong question.
Okay. People are task people.
Okay, I love it. Relationships or results?
Relationships.
Culture or productivity?
Culture.
Hospitality or excellence?
See, this is
is
where
this
I'm
is-
trying to.
My-
really tries to be a real
my
cinnamon
third
down here.
interjection of I reject this entire premise. Hospitality.
Okay, more on the business side here. Cash flow or profitability?
Cash flow.
All right, let's just pause here. I know.
Wow.
Tell us why. And the reason why is because oftentimes we talk about leadership, and leadership happens in context, right? And in your case, you've had a lot of different contexts with which you've led, in which you've led. Why is cash flow more important than profitability
Well,
across the board?
Sure. Well, practically, I can't say it's the only thing that matters, but not understanding cash flow will get you out of business way faster. Because, well, let's just make it super simple. If you are running a business and you look at a P&L and you're like, hey, we made $100,000 last year, great. And you're guaranteed to have the same business this year. Your profitability, $100,000. Hey, I'm going to make $100,000 this year. Awesome. I'm going to start Q1 kind of doing this and doing that. Whatever, if we're spending money. This is how we're going to prepare for next year, and we're going to use this profitability and do this and do that. Awesome. We're making $100,000. Q2, you're out of business because you didn't realize that your $100,000 was made in November. All of it. That's cash flow in a nutshell. It's like you don't understand.
The timing. It's a timing question,
Sure,
right?
That's it. What your burn rate is, how that revenue is coming in, your expenses. How do your expenses match up with the timing of those things? And so, sure, profitability is it's great and it's important, but cash flow will ruin you if you don't understand what you're doing.
Okay, deeper onto the business side, something that I thought you'd really be able to speak to as well is total sales or transaction counts. Total sales volume or transaction
This is
counts.
the rapid fire. What's more important?
Yeah, what's more important?
Yeah.
Business leadership, total sales volume or transaction counts?
I would say transaction counts.
Tell us why.
Because, well, certainly in real estate, this is super practical. We can achieve a level of total sales. Two different agents can have total sales of the same. So let's say $50 million in sales. Well, someone could achieve that in 200 transactions of $400,000 a piece. Is that whatever the math is, $500,000 a piece? Or you can achieve it in 50 transactions of $1 million a piece. One of those is going to dramatically impact how you serve your clients.
That's right.
There's no way I could give the same level of service doing that many transactions. I just can't. So I would rather sacrifice the sales so that I can achieve the level of service that I feel is appropriate. Again, it's not a binary reality. You need both. Like, please.
You
please
really don't like my questions.
But here,
Like
this
that.
goes back to, if I can say, back to Houston's, where, there is this idea that the appropriate amount of service can't exist if a server has more than 3 tables, period, in a day. You go to most restaurants and ask any server, oh, I can handle 8 tables. Like, okay, whatever. At Houston's, we didn't do that. And so here's our standard. You might be able to do that, great, but here's how we guarantee it. And so if a server calls in sick and we can't cover that shift, we don't divide up that server's sections, we close a section. So when you're on an hour and a half wait and that wait is staring at 3 open tables,
Oh, yeah.
it's really hard. And so trying to explain to someone, like, look, I get it. I know that table is open, but if we seat you there, there's a good chance you're not going to receive the experience that we feel is appropriate. And it's true. And so the same is true in my real estate business. Can't always control the flow of real estate, how it comes in, but that idea is still there. And I'm not built for volume of transactions.
That's good.
So
A little bit of your philosophy on what care, hospitality looks like in your current season as you serve your real estate clients. Would you share with us just some of maybe the driving thought behind your behavior and level of service?
Sure. Well, real estate in general is typically the most expensive, financial transaction people will do, and that inherently carries a lot of stress and emotional tension in families as those things happen, but also a lot of joy and excitement. And so I'm here to eliminate all that stress as much as possible by answering questions before they're asked. Can I deliver something that will remove some stress before, the stress gets too high? So I'm going to walk them through this process. I'm going to pay attention and identify things that are important to them. So it's really a studying of the client, through, I know some people have said, the art of observation, and that's really what it is. Every client is different, and so my desire is just to make this as smooth and stress-free as possible when I know there's already kind of an organic level of stress. And I'm looking for a feeling of joy and excitement that is usually enhanced by how well I can kind of identify those desires and deliver on them before they ask me. And so that's it. And so I've had people that are like, I don't know about this house, so it's really stressful. Like, I guess I'll take it. Like, I'm not looking for I guess I'll take it. Like, I'm looking for a bullseye of this is where I want to come home every day. So I'm trying to find these feelings or expression of joy, and until I do that, I guess I keep going. I mean, again, every client's it's different. An investor, it's a different reality for serving them. But in general, yeah, what can I do to make this the most pleasant experience possible, from a seller to a buyer? Just understanding the needs of the client before they express it to me. I mean, that's really it.
Yeah. In the Chick-fil-A world, we would say anticipate the needs of the guest would be the phrase that we would use, and I always felt like that was so helpful. one final piece of advice I wonder if you'd share for young and emerging leaders. If you could have whispered this in your ear walking into the first day at Chuck E. Cheese or maybe first day at Houston's, what would you have told yourself at that time? Maybe we could even frame it in terms of, how you're coaching your, emerging leader kids right now as they're coming into opportunities to grow and lead in sports teams.
Yeah, probably the most important thing to me today that has, I won't even say given me success, but I do think that's a byproduct, is achieving a level of peace in my talent, meaning identifying the things that you're good at is awesome and needed. Identifying the things that you're not good at is needed. But really accepting those things that you're not good at, and not only accepting them, but being humble enough to allow someone else to excel in your weakness, that was huge for me, because back in corporate life, there was none of that. You had to be everything. There's no weakness anywhere. You had to be the man if you were going to do well and excel and get promoted. And it's just a miserable way to go about life. And so being able to release those things that I'm not good at and be super comfortable, it's so freeing. And now it's great, I'm not even going to go down that road. As I build, my business in real estate, there's other realtors that are awesome at lots of stuff that I'm terrible at. And so I won't even try it. It's great. Just let it go. Or get someone on your team who is amazing at it. So if you're not humble enough to, again, not just identify your weakness, but let it go, and don't try to do things you're terrible at. Press into the things that you are, and not feel like you have to be everything guy is great. It's I get young realtors now that are, hey, can you help? I'm getting started in the biz. Should I be cold calling or door knocking or open houses? I don't know. I'm terrible at all of those things. So I don't do it. And I'm not going to even pretend to try to teach you how to do that stuff. So that's good. Yeah.
Super good word, man. Super good word. Yeah. Love it. Love it. No, I feel like we need you to come back and tell us a whole bunch more, just on that, and the art of observation. I mean, I think we could spend so much time there that we don't have today, but been fantastic, Vincent.
Well,
thank you so much. Learned so much from you today.
Very cool.
Super excited. Guys, thanks for tuning in. Brad, anything as we're wrapping up here?
Thank you guys so much for watching this episode of The Daily Leader. Guys, where can they find you?
I'm on Instagram, vincent.clark24, or on my website, vincentclarkre.com.
Perfect. Guys, go check out Vincent, Instagram, and his website. Make sure that you like, subscribe, comment.
Sure.
We've been pushing the comments.
Yeah, I like the comments.
Yeah.
Ask us questions. We like good questions.
And we respond in the comments too. I'm on Instagram and YouTube responding to
there a
comments when I have no business being on social media responding to comments.
That is
So I'd love to see you guys there.
Yeah.
And mind your screen time.
With that,
Until next time.
we'll see you guys later.